Hey guys, it's just me, Dan, and Vanessa's here too.
Hi guys.
So this is the Fitness for Normal People podcast and sort of recorded video thingy jig that we need to start actually uploading to places like YouTube for a change. And today we're talking about how to gain muscle. So it's a pretty big topic, but something I think as two previous physique competitors have um, been involved in, I think we're in a good place to sort of talk about it. So from Vanessa's point of view here, Vanessa, what's kind of your main goal with a lot of your clients that you've had?
Women want to lose body fat. So when they come to me, they want to lose body fat, and the conflicting thing with them is weight loss versus body fat, and effectively how to tone up. So the big thing is tone, and explaining what exactly that is and how you can tone up those body bits on the body. And I always recommend weight training. You look at me and like, so kind of breaking down the barriers and guide them through the process of weight training and how that can change their body.
Yeah, so it's you're very quiet, by the way, just so you know.
Okay, let me bring. Is that better? Is it better a bit closer?
Loads better, yeah, loads better. Yeah, I think so. From a female perspective, and like with DMF, we're sort of half and half. So we have sort of half women, half men, and it's funny how men and women kind of, although they're different in terms of the way they think and stuff, they still have the same hang-ups. They still sort of think, guys want to kind of look better, or they might look on the scales and go, ooh, nothing's really shifting. And girls kind of petrified of the scales because they want to lose weight, don't they? That's the main thing.
Yeah, very much so. And about men, for women to not look and focus too much on the scales, it's very hard to actually change that mindset. It seems to be ingrained, and it's a habit that you have to unlearn.
Yeah, so I think like putting on muscle tissue is quite a funny one, really, because you've got people women always say they want to tone up and lose weight. And what tone up actually means is actually gaining muscle tissue. So it's actually gaining lean body mass. Guys say, oh, I want to put on muscle, but I don't want to get too big, which always kind of, do you know what? Yeah, it does. It does make me laugh. I'm going to be honest. It does make me laugh because I think they kind of look at the big bodybuilders you see in magazines or on the telly and go, I don't want to look like that. And it's like, well, you won't, because you're going to have to take copious amounts of chemicals to make that happen.
Yeah.
And what you must get the same, if not worse, with girls. What do they always say?
Yeah, girls definitely want to have the ideal physique. So they want to have a low body fat percentage. They want to have everything nice and tight. And they don't want to get no. I know why you're laughing. Stop it. And they want to, look nice aesthetically, I should say, but they don't want to get bulky. And I think weightlifting has, from like women in fitness magazines, they're ripped beyond belief, and they don't want to necessarily look like that. So that kind of puts the fear into them that they're going to end up looking a bit bulky and butch. So that's what I try and get across, that you're not going to get to that stage unless you've trained for years and you're on such a strict diet, you're dieting down to look that way. That's not going to be achievable for the average person.
No, and I think like if you look at, I think when you look at the guys that, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm so out of the loop with that circle in fitness and stuff. I just don't give a monkeys about it in terms of the bikini models and the physique guys. It's a lot of them are just, it's not realistic or achievable for pretty much 99% of the population.
No, I mean, both of us have competed, and I'm currently training a couple of girls, and they are putting in some serious hours. In the last few weeks, their life is consumed by eating, sleeping, training, just to get to that kind of look, that lean, shredded look. So unless you've got time to do that, it's not achievable for most people.
No, I think it's, and the other thing as well is like, I mean, we've got like in the gym, we've got 21-year-old girls, our youngest, 23-year-old guys, our youngest guy, we're up to about 57 year old men and women. So we've got a real balance. I mean, it's a personal training gym only. So it's real balance, real different kind of group of people. Not a single one of them has any form of aspiration of getting absolutely shredded. A few of the guys and girls have got really lean. So one of the guys was just looking through some old pictures and stuff, and I'd got him. He'd tried all the magazine workouts under the sun, and I'd got him before. I've got him to sort of shredded six pack, very lean. He'd lost something like 18. What did he get down to? Got down to really lean. It was about 18 kilos, and he put work into getting it. And he wants to get back there now. And I was like, "You're 40 and you've just had a baby," and he went, "Yeah, actually." So we're just looking at getting him to a decent level. But in terms of gaining muscle tissue, I think there's a little bit more to it. So I think the biggest thing for women is obviously they look at the numbers on the scales, and when they're trying to lean out, or when they start training and stuff, they start lifting weights. Scales don't often move, they don't budge much, but they look real different.
Yeah, their body composition changes, doesn't it? The way the shape is, it looks different.
So, and that's it's really difficult to kind of get across what's actually going on with them. And another couple of my peers like Mike and up in Cheltenham and other guys and stuff, they got what's called an in-body machine. And an in-body machine is like, have you ever stepped on those stupid scales in Boots? Have you ever stepped on those?
No.
You haven't? So they're pretty crap, to be fair. You basically hold on to these sort of handles, and it sends electrical current through. So it takes your weight, takes your height, and sends electrical current through and says, you are this body fat percentage, you're this BMI, you're this weight.
Yeah, okay.
So it's kind of like that, but they're about $8,000. So they're a bit more expensive and a bit more advanced. And they do actually take a very good, the ones in Boots don't take a very good measurement, because what they do is you put your hands on the handles, and it will send electrical current through your body, but it goes from point to point. So if you're holding it the two quickest points, if you're holding it in the two contact points in your hands, it will send electrical current through your hands, up your arm, across your chest, and then down your other arm. Well, I don't store much body fat on my chest or back. I store it all around my ass and my love handles. So it's kind of a bit silly, and my gut as well. And so it's a bit silly, really. Whereas the in-body gives a bit more of it. It's sort of like a full-on scan. So like the more accurate ones are things like the DEXA scan, but in-body's pretty accurate. They give a really good idea of what's going on. But in terms, if you're just trying to tell somebody, actually, you haven't lost much weight, but what's happened is you've dropped a dress size or you've dropped a jean size, and you will have gained muscle, and they can't get their head around it. But the way to tell is, are you squatting more? Are you deadlifting a lot more? Are you bench pressing? What's your overall weight in the gym? Is it gone up?
Yeah. So I get my girls to look at factors. So when they check in with me every week, they have to not only produce a food diary, but they also have to send in their progress photos. We do look at weight because it does have some reflection, especially if you've got quite a bit of weight to lose. And overall, your weight will go down, but it's not always a linear process. So some weeks it will stay the same. It might fluctuate and go up. And I also get them to take their body circumference measurements as well. And so we've got a bigger picture of what's actually happening with the female body, rather than just going, right, well, the scales are said your weight's gone up. And if they just looked at that alone, they'd be absolutely devastated, because that's not their goal. Their goal was to lose weight. So if their weight went up, but their measurements went down, I would explain what was happening. Maybe they've had there's so many things that can affect your weight, but as long as the measurements are going down, that's got to be a good thing, right? I always say to them, what would you rather be, 9 stone and drop a dress size, or weigh 8 stone and still do the same dress size?
And yeah, and this is it. And I have this battle all the time. And I can give all the education, I can show them all the literature, I can explain to them, you can show visually the pictures.
Yeah.
Yet people are so hung up. You can put a before and after, right? Your weight, look at the weight here, look at the weight here. And you do the before and after, and they'll go, yeah, but I'm still 10 stone and I want to be 9.
Yeah, it's just you keep going and trust the process. You know, it's nice to have someone to, like, for instance, your guys have got you, they're accountable to you, so you can rationalise it. But for somebody that's trying to do this on their own, that could be the breaking point for them if they stepped on the scales and just thought, well, what's the bloody point? I've gained weight. I'm going to jack it all in. So it's nice that, you know, my clients have got me, yours have got you, and we can actually talk them and help them through the process. Because it is quite a tough barrier to break down if that's all you focused on for the last 30 odd years.
Yeah, maybe for you. I'm younger than you, remember that? So obviously you see these changes a lot more, I think, with, I know, so with your newer clients, and that is probably the hardest time as well. So it's when people are kind of, so what, you know, a woman always says the same thing when they start the gym.
What's
What
that?
do they, well, you know, you tell us, what do they say to you?
I want to lose a little bit of weight and look good. That's what.
And I don't want to get.
Oh, I don't want to get bulky. Yes.
Yeah. And that's like, so like you shouldn't really get frustrated, but you do, because it's this, in our job you just say the same stuff all the time.
Yeah, I don't, you know what, I think I just kind of expect everybody to say that now, and so it doesn't bother me, but I think if they come to train with me, they know they're going to be lifting weights anyway, because they've seen my Instagram, they've seen the results that my other girls have got. So the initial point of, yeah, I'm going to be lifting weights, let's do this, isn't actually an issue for them, but it's when they then, in the first couple of weeks, we're trying to find how their body works. So I think they expect immediate results, and then they panic because they haven't seen the weight loss, and now they're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to end up looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger. But in reality, you know, it's a bit like a science experiment. I need to know how your body works. It's going to take me a couple of weeks to find, you know, your baseline of what happens with your body and how we can move things about to get results. And I think the initial 2 weeks then puts them in that kind of nervous stance. And then once I find out what works, what doesn't, we can then push forwards, and that's where the results come. So the first couple of weeks, I think they're a bit more nervous, and it's just a case of them putting a little bit of faith into the process. Do you find that?
Yeah, I think so. The big thing is, as well, is in the first sort of 6 to 12 months of training, lifting weights, and that's where you're going to see the most amount of muscle tissue gain. So a male, you know, we're not talking about bodybuilders who take stuff. So all the guys and stuff that you see in magazines and whatever else, and all the girls that you see in magazines and on websites and stuff, you can pretty much scratch out and ignore them. And these days the lines are really, really blurred in terms of who's doing what and who isn't doing what. So it's really hard for people to kind of gauge what's realistic and what isn't. Probably more so now than ever.
What should what targets for men and women, probably men in this situation, in terms of weight, how much should they be looking at gaining in terms of muscle?
Well, that's a really loaded question, and I'll keep it as concise as possible because I ramble, as always. So the way I always do things with everybody, most guys and girls, so most guys come into the gym, there's probably around about 10% of men who come into the gym who are just naturally skinny, naturally lean.
Yeah.
I mean, even that might be an overestimation. So those guys I could just go to town with. Now, those guys are naturally, you start giving them more food and they naturally move more.
Yeah.
So you've got to kind of force them to sit on their backside a little bit more. There was one chap I had last year called Charlie, and he gained, I've never seen anything like, it's not all muscle tissue, it can't be, but it was a decent amount. Like physically you could see, I mean, he was probably around about 6 foot, and he was probably around about 68, 70 kilos, piss wet. Yeah, like proper naturally lean, you know, and we gained in 3 months, he gained about 11 pounds and he still had a six pack. So I've just done 2 different types of measurements there. So it was around about 2.5 kilos, and it mostly, I would say, mostly was lean tissue. And that's a decent amount. So it's not, doesn't, everyone's like, what? That sounds like it should be more. But if he had carried on, he only trained 3 times a week, nothing crazy. If he'd have carried on, he could have got better and better because we were progressively just getting stronger and stronger and stronger weekly. But his wife was just due a baby, had the baby done, and that was it. And obviously he's got other priorities at the moment. So,
you know, in terms of weight, that's almost £1 a week.
Yeah, I suppose it is. And that's a fair amount. I mean, that's unusual to gain. So as I say, like, I think there's some measurements and some things that you can do based on your wrists and ankles. And I think, I can't remember the other measurement. I think, I can't remember the exact numbers and stuff, but you can do some genetic potential stuff where you can kind of gauge how much muscle you can gain over a lifetime. But as a box standard, you can gain probably around about, I think as a male, I think it's 28 pounds of muscle, lean tissue in your first year. And then after that, it halves every year until you get into the minuscule amounts. And it's not, and you know, and that can change. So you've got genetics to play within that. And lots of men kind of will go, is that it? But having been around big, you know, bodybuilding meathead guys who are actually surprisingly nicer than most people think. A lot of, well, the ones I knew anyway. It's quite tough actually being that size. That, you know, some of these guys are humongous and can't buy clothes. You can't sit in airplane seats or buy normal cars. And you know, whatever. Women is probably around about half that. So, you know, you're never going to gain. You'll get, but it's context, isn't it? It's relative to the individual, relative to the gender. So, you know, women are naturally smaller generally, and obviously men are naturally slightly bigger. So you will gain, but based on, you know, and it's based on your gender, and again based on your genetics. As a girl I'm training, I've been training her for ages now, but she's the last sort of year, Jesus Christ, I have to detrain her pecs.
Oh, you said, yeah.
It's crazy. Like, she'll do 1 4-week block where she'll be flat pressing, and then she's like, I don't want to do that now because of this. And I'm like, yeah, fair enough. And I have to detrain them. It's crazy. She just gains muscle like you wouldn't believe.
Well, that actually brings me on to the next point then. So what about lagging body parts? So we all have things that seem to come up quicker than others. For me, it used to be my quads. I used to have the most ridiculous pair of quads until now they've been sorted out. And I had no spots. So what about lagging body parts for people? What should they do to get them to where they need to be?
So when people are weight training, usually people do too much anyway. So they'll either do stupid things like, not stupid, but they kind of miss the point, and they're like, the programming isn't correct for somebody who's, you know, people like us, for example. So the way I would train people is 3 to 4 times a week within the gym. Can be 5, it can be 6, it really depends, but usually 3 to 4 for most people, probably about 90% of people. Yeah. You train pretty much every body part with compound movements and multi-joint stuff. So things like presses, pulling, you know, presses, pulls, rows, overhead press, squats, deadlifts, deadlift variations, bridges, all those kind of things, you know, whereas most people focus on things like bicep curls and chest flies and lateral raises and the stuff which really doesn't elicit much muscle growth. But to train, there's a bit of a caveat with all of this stuff, as with everything. If you train something too much, you've got a bit of a diminishing return. So if you train something too frequently, you can lead to overeat. You know, if you try to train your chest really, really frequently to bring the chest up, for example, and it really depends again on who it is. But I remember when I tried a bench program, like a pressing program, and I didn't bring the volume down on everything else. I just kept it the same. Because obviously I thought I was special. And my elbow, I got tendonitis in my elbow, which I had for about 11 weeks, and it was so sore. I just couldn't press at all. So it completely wasted my time. I did about 8 weeks of a pressing program. My chest did grow, did look different. But then my elbow was knackered, so I couldn't train it for ages.
So it's just about putting more volume through that lagging body part.
Yeah, within reason, and certainly understanding how much volume to place for a body part per session as well, which is often way overdone. So I remember doing 500 rep leg days and stupid crap like that.
I've been following a girl on Instagram, and she quite often puts herself through 1,000 reps of hip thrusts, and I just think, the point of that being what?
She can't be doing that much weight though with that, surely.
Well, she's pretty badass. I mean, she has got an amazing body, but I don't think that's going to be beneficial. And she puts the video up. You can only go by what people show on the highlight reels on Instagram and social media. But she did say that it's 1,000 reps of hip thrusts. I was like, why would you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I say, there is, like what I've always said, just because somebody's in really, really good shape doesn't mean they're an authority on what they're talking about. People will go, what people will say, well, it works for me. So, and that's what they always say. It doesn't mean to say that it's right. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's throwing me a little bit.
So if you wanted to, so let's say if you wanted to grow your glutes and you're female, would you train your glutes twice a week, 3 times a week? What about rest? Is that important for the muscles to recover, or is that overselling?
So let's take you, for example. So you've been training for a long time. I know you. I know what I can throw at you if I wanted to, what you needed, what I would think would be necessary. So if I really wanted to put you on a glute program, I know I'd give you 1, maybe 2 exercises per session that would not necessarily target them, but like I know that your glutes grow specifically with squats quite well. I know that your glutes would grow well from Romanian deadlifts because I know that you know how to activate them quite well as well. So it really depends on the individual, but somebody who is, let's just take somebody who you just think, right, she's been training a year, she wants to bring her bum cheeks to look like to be able to crack walnuts. So all I would do is give her, say, right, let's try and make sure that we get a hip extension. So that's a deadlift variation or a hinge variation, so like a glute bridge or a hip thrust or a Romanian deadlift or something along those lines, probably 2 to 3 times a week, and a squat variation or something that is going to incorporate some knee flexion movements as well. 1 to 2 times a week, and then I would measure that progress and measure a recovery over 3 to 4 weeks and see what happens and see how she responds. But I would train it within different rep ranges as well. I think different tempos, learn maybe some different tweaks, it's almost like gimmicky things really. So we do them in the gym. So taking a couple of the ladies through some stuff. They were like, I never feel my bum when I'm doing any of these exercises. What can I do? And it's like, okay, try and spread the floor with your feet. Let's get some of this, try and do that and tweak this and tweak that. And they're like, oh my God, my bum's on fire. And that can just help with kind of learning how to switch it on and things. To the point, even when today I was doing some barbell row exercises, my lower back is not happy at the moment. So I overarched the opposite way. Right. So I pulled my rib cage really hard into my hips and my back looked arched.
Right.
But for me, it felt really good and I got my back better. So I took my lower back out of the equation completely. That's the first time I've ever done that, which was really, really strange. You can tell I haven't trained properly for ages. Yeah. But it really kind of made me kind of a bit more aware. And again, that can be specific. But yeah, probably starting off with 2 to 3 times a week per body part and see how it responds.
So next question would be, obviously, as we go through a program, we want to see the weights going up. This doesn't relate really that much to women because I think women tend to under-push themselves in the gym. I know a lot of my women can certainly lift more weights than what they have been doing. And when they get to me, I'm like, no, hang on. This is what you're capable of. So women tend to underestimate, but when I go into a gym, I often see guys trying to lift the heaviest weight possible. And whilst you're trying to give yourself a challenge, I think that kind of takes away from the form and from the actual mind-muscle connection. And it's literally then just move an object from A to B. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, so again, I'm not a massive authority on this subject, and there's a lot of real sciencey technical guys who are really, really switched on with this kind of stuff. But you look at, so if you're wanting to grow a muscle, if you're wanting to change the way you look, a lot of people can get away with stuff, and that's fine for them. But the way I would teach somebody how to get the best out of a muscle is teach them how to switch it on and work it properly. So you're absolutely right. You watch guys swinging these great big dumbbells. So there's a lateral raise, which is working the outside of your shoulder, basically. And the outside of your shoulder is a frigging tiny little muscle. And mine is, you see these guys and they're chucking up 45 kilo dumbbells, and that's great for them. If that's what they want to do, I'm not taking it away from them to crack on. I actually put people onto a bench facing forward, so it completely takes any movement out of their body, and then they would do a lateral raise. I only do it with like 3 kilo dumbbells, and try and keep it real strict, and without trying to use the traps up here. So you're pinning your shoulders right down and keeping the traps right down, and that takes away from, keeps it spongy up there. And people are like, oh my God, I've never been able to do it like that before. And I do it, and you do it like that and you see the difference. So it's, and you watch people doing things like deadlifts and stuff, or whatever it is they're doing, and just like, oh my God, it's
an ego where they're next to another guy, and it's like, well, if you're doing that, I can do this. And they kind of have this like standoff in deadlifts, and I'm just waiting for someone's back to snap.
Yeah, I did that with a mate. I used to live with him. We were really competitive. When I moved back down from Kent, he was always like, so he was my mate down, and he was always like really good with the ladies. He was always like, he had a really nice car and all this kind of stuff. I was always skint, like lacking in confidence, no self-confidence, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then so whenever we went and did sport or something, I always had to beat him or whatever, because that's who I am as a person. And I remember we were doing like almost like a squat off, and we got past him, but for some reason I just decided to keep going.
Okay.
And then I got completely pinned in front of him under a squat with about 190 kilos on there, and I got down to the bottom.
Yeah.
I couldn't get back up, and the whole gym was looking at me.
Oh no.
Yeah.
How did you come out of that one?
Well, I sort of embarrassingly but also angry. It's embarrassed but also angry, and sort of shouted at him and said, come on, help me out. And he was like, what do you expect me to do? Bicep curl it off you? So I was just kind of there. It must have probably been about 15 seconds, but it felt like about 2 years. And then probably the smallest guy in the gym, fair play to him, came and helped my mate take it off. And then all of his mates just pissed themselves laughing, and I was horrendously embarrassed. There's a lesson there.
Yeah.
There is a lesson. That said, you're absolutely right. And there is as I said earlier on a blog post, there is a time to know when to back off. But to elicit any, muscle growth, you do need to have adequate weight on that bar. So if there's not the right amount of weight, your body is just going to take forever to get where you want to get to. And that is, trust me, it's incredibly frustrating lifting weights, wondering why the hell you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah, I think this is why I do my monthly group, because I'm an online coach, why I do my monthly group trainings. A lot of women are actually surprised when I just say, you can't just lift the bar by itself. That's not going to do anything. You need to add weight on. But, and then the other side of things, guys sometimes need to get their egos in check and just back off a little bit.
Yeah, been there, done that, and got the t-shirt. So I'm just going to finish off actually, V, with a little bit of how much people should be looking to gain. So when you're trying to lose body fat, if you've got some weight to lose, if you're trying to lose body fat, if you've got, I'm not going to have the same percentages or anything like that. But if you can't see sort of almost, if you're not relatively lean or in relatively good shape, then don't worry about how much muscle you should be gaining or weight you should be gaining. You'll know because your circumference measurements will change on your arms and legs and chest and back in a good, positive way. And that's what you want to do. And when you, don't worry about, gaining muscle. As long as you're adding weight to the bar, your body has to adapt. So that's how it works. As long as you're adding weight to the bar, so progressive overload with relatively correct nutrition. You don't even have to be that great with nutrition to elicit muscle growth, but you should, to get the best out of it, you should. But there is sort of like numbers that you want to hit. If you are quite lean and you're trying to gain muscle tissue, then you probably want to be looking at about, so if I think it's for a woman off the top of my head, I think you want to be looking between probably around about 1% of your total body weight per month.
Yep.
And for a male, I think it's 1.5%, so 1 to 1.5%. And you could probably go a little bit higher than that. But people kind of tend to have a bit of a wobbly when they see the numbers going up on the scales.
Yeah.
But something around that mark would be pretty good.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about nutrition just briefly, because obviously protein comes into this, and when it comes down to protein, how much do people actually need to see? I know it differs men and women, so for men and women, how much do they need to consume to gain muscle?
So the numbers that I use or have historically used have slightly changed, and depending on who and what you follow, there are different numbers that are banded around. Now, I kind of tend to, I'm just getting a calculator. I'm tending to, I stick with the stuff, based on what I've learned and stuff in the past. But the sort of minimum amounts that you wanted to be looking for is around about 0.6 grams per pound of body weight. Mm-hmm. So let's take me at the moment, who is 217 pounds.
Yep.
So the way I'd work that out is 217 times 0.6. Oh, how fucking work a calculator. So that is the absolute minimum I'd want for general health, really. But I recommend 0.8 as a baseline. And the sort of gold standard which people kind of would go to is probably the 1 gram per pound. That's quite high and not necessarily necessary. So it really depends. Now, if you took somebody who's got some weight to lose and they kind of have a sort of, a scatty diet, don't really know what protein, they think that 100 grams of protein is 100 grams of chicken breast, which it isn't. They might need a bit of education. Their protein intake's all over the place. I wouldn't be worried about that. If you've got somebody who's 180 pounds and they need to get down to about, realistically, they probably got about 30, 40 pounds to lose. I would just say to them, work up to 100 grams and stick around that mark. So that's what I would say to a woman. For a male, men tend to find protein intake a lot easier.
Yeah.
I would say to them, stop eating like a baby, like a little girl, and eat a bit more meat, and eat a few things like eggs and have some whey protein. Guys buy into that stuff a bit more because, they're like, yeah.
Wait, I think it's widely accepted for males, isn't it?
Yeah, and girls tend to think that whey protein is like steroids, isn't it? So you've got to be careful with that.
Yeah. I've managed to pick that on Instagram. So, you can do such amazing things with it, like add it to yogurt and make your protein oats and things like that. And they kind of use it now as fillers, so they don't mind it so much. It's fine.
No, exactly. It's what you kind of. I'm rubbish with that side of things. I just kind of. That's about as interesting as I get with food. I just bang it in. I like the old. I just like pasta. That's what I just love. Pasta. I'm obsessed with it.
Do you?
Yeah, fresh pasta's the tits. So
boring.
Yeah, it's my favourite thing in the world. I could eat fresh pasta all day. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, 0.6 grams per pound. You know, if you're taking a 150-pound woman, that's only 90 grams. I mean, it shouldn't really be that hard to get to 90 grams. You're talking a bit of tuna. You know, if you took a tin of tuna, that's 37 grams there, done.
Yeah. It should be done. So, okay, staying on the protein thing, once you've had a workout, there's been, the anabolic window. That word has been thrown around a lot. So, once you've done your workout, some people think you need to have a protein shake immediately afterwards, otherwise you're going to lose your gains. Is that true?
I worked out today. I've been working out. I know, it's amazing. I've been working out recently. Did 12 sets of 12s on squats. Sets of 12.
Set 12. Wow, you must really love squats.
3 sets of 12. I wanted to puke.
I thought you meant 12 sets. Sorry. Oh. Wow.
Not weirdo. Yeah, and I've lost at least 5 kilograms of muscle because I didn't have any protein straight after.
You're wasting away.
I know. The anabolic window.
I guess so by your sarcastic undertones, I'm guessing that's not true.
No. Yeah, the anabolic window. Right. This is where people completely miss the point.
Yeah.
I have over the different things that we do at DMF. I think we've got like about 130 people that we're coaching. I'll just look through them all. Just real quick. That's great podcasting. Ready? No, can't see any. There's not a single person there that I can see that I worry about food after a training session. I actually worry more about food before a training session and just general whether they're feeling good enough to train, as in if they're eating enough. That's what I care about mostly. People completely miss the point. Your overall protein intake throughout the day is the most important thing. So muscle protein synthesis, or just make it so just for everybody else, just for people like us, all you need to care about is just getting adequate protein throughout the course of the day. And if you tick that box, like 90% of the time, worrying about that bloody anabolic window is just missing the point. Not to say that there isn't any value in it, but you're talking about 1% stuff that is completely irrelevant.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you're hungry after your workout, go eat by all means. But if you're not, then it's not going to be the end of the world.
And on the flip side of it, if you aren't eating enough to be able to sustain, at least trying to progress through a training plan relatively well, bearing in mind that in a deficit at some point, depending on how lean you get, you'll find adding weight to the bar quite tough. If you're losing strength quite dramatically, then you're probably losing a bit of muscle as well. So you've got to try and mitigate that as best as you can by eating adequate calories whilst in a deficit. So there are more important things at play, but worrying about post-workout nutrition is like, yeah.
Okay, and the last question I've got for you is, you mentioned protein synthesis, food timing. Is that important? Is it better to have 6 small meals, all with, say 30 grams worth of protein, or does that not matter and you can have your protein in 3 larger meals or in all one go?
Well, look, put it this way, you fast throughout the night when you go to sleep.
Yeah.
I don't think many people really give a monkeys about whether they're gaining or losing muscle during then. And again, I've physically watched, well, not physically, I was asleep, but we were on holiday with a bodybuilder once. Yeah, and he was getting up in the middle of the night to eat in the middle of the night, and it's just silly. It doesn't make sense to do that. It's not making any difference. No, you don't need to do that. Like I say, overall protein intake throughout the day is the most important thing. So if you want to eat 3 meals a day, the absolute optimum is to have a portion of protein every 6 hours in the day. So if you really were like wanting to nail that, but why? You wouldn't. I've seen people in the most ridiculous shape. They're incredible. They're in incredible shape, better than I would ever even dream of getting to. And they eat twice a day. That's it. 2 meals. Nothing special. They just eat 2 meals.
Yeah.
And they don't care. And they don't think about it. People worry about all this pointless stuff because that person on Instagram's doing this, or that person said I need to eat 6 meals a day.
Yeah.
it's pointless.
There you go. That's it. That's all my questions for you on it.
Good. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. But I think the most important thing is especially for guys, losing fat, in my opinion, is a lot easier than gaining muscle tissue. The best way to gain muscle tissue is to have a progressive training plan. Don't wing it. Don't guess because of because I like to vary my stuff. You can vary what you want after you've done your main 4 lifts of a day. As long as you focus on that, if you have varying rep ranges, but keep consistent and stay consistent on a plan for at least 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing that, you're missing out. And that's what people don't get. I was that guy. Oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do a structured plan. I want to do it my way. Well, I was a skinny fat dude until I was, late 20s. And it was only until I followed a structure that actually I started to see the results. And I think, that's what most people miss the point with.
I agree. I've seen lots of people just kind of mess around in the gym thinking they know it all and they're going to do it their way, and they get nowhere fast.
Yeah, and you've got to put effort in. I hate to say it, but you've got to put effort in. As much as I always say to people, it's important to learn when to back off. It absolutely is, but you do have to put a shift in more times, more often than not. And so there's
afraid to get down and dirty in the gym. I think they're just playing it safe is not the way ahead. Challenge yourself and see how far you can push it without losing form or getting into any bad habits.
100%, and that's the way to look at it. This is a bloody big one. Actually, you go into it for ages and ages. So I think what we'll do is we won't go into it for ages and ages, because I think that's been a good 40 minutes there. So I think we'll call it there. But so hopefully that makes sense. A couple of people asked about this topic, so that would be good if we can get some feedback. But in the meantime, thanks for joining me, Vanessa.
That's all right. I will see you next week.
Same time next week. See you later, guys.